Hey, just a moment ago, I've been given a little ping to deliver a message about boundaries. I'm not entirely 100% sure what's coming through here, so because it just came through and they want me to film it, so I'm gonna tap in. Surrendered with faith in service to our highest good, with synchronicity held in reverence as it illuminates our aligned paths. We receive what resonates and release the rest. Many people, first of all, don't really know what it feels like or what it means to have boundaries. And many people who are getting a grasp of it kind of imagine it or picture it as something that you build up and carry with you. But the perspective that we'd like to share with you is that you aren't creating something that isn't already there. Instead, you are recognizing a pattern that is literally meant to be a boundary on the path that your life is taking. The boundary exists on your life path. The recognition of the pattern on that boundary isn't itself a boundary, but rather it's a script or a program or a story on when I encounter this pattern, how do I navigate peacefully around the bend in my life path. The purpose of a boundary on your life path is to allow you grace in moving through, or more precisely around, what you would perceive as having to push through the darkness, to push through I'm resisting saying a lot. Sorry. To push through the bullshit of the forces outside of you. Your path of least resistance does not require you to put up shields, to push through negativity, to stir up chaos, to pick off the scabs of others. Instead, it requires you not to be a particle of light shooting through and colliding, but to be the waveform of light that recognizes a bend in the life path. Allow all variations of all paths to be within the potential of your next step. Do not insist blowing through a boundary. You can, of course, and for most of your life, you have the chaos that you've caused, and the reverse, the chaos that's inflicted upon you, is people blowing through the boundaries of their life path and pushing against you, expecting you to bend, expecting you to take a smaller shape so that they may pass unaffected. This is not how any of you are meant to traverse your life paths. You are meant to recognize the patterns of what a boundary is so that you may gracefully take another turn in another direction, step forward in a way that may appear to be backwards. You have to allow it, embodying the waveform of light. In order to form these boundaries, or rather, in order to form the recognition of these boundaries, it does take, typically, training. Repeating the cycles of your life until you recognize the pattern consciously. However, there is a shortcut. It is the emotional guidance system. You have an immediate recognition and awareness of when someone is telling you to do something or expecting you to behave in a certain way, that there's something out of alignment there. You can feel it in your heart immediately, like, I'm not comfortable doing that. But the default human behavior, and we say default, knowing very well that it's not the default that you are born with, but rather society's expectation that was beaten into you. The normal reaction to such an encounter is to either bend and make yourself small so that their ego can direct your life. But you don't have to do this. You can stand tall, and you don't have to push through them. You can walk away. If you surrender with this degree of faith in your life path, there will always be an alternative route, and it may not be leading to the same destination that you had intentionally intended on reaching. You must be willing to let go of the expectation of a particular outcome in order to follow this wave path. Trust that if there was excitement in the direction you are headed, that it had purpose and will continue to have purpose. But the timing is something that belongs in the domain of the how, and the domain of the how does not belong to the conscious mind to figure out and to determine. It will come back around on your life path, on your path of least resistance, in its own timing. We have more to say on this, but we're going to take a quick break so that the energy can balance in the channel. The formation of your recognition of these boundaries results in not just the pattern recognition of what is essentially a road sign on your path, which can be encountered very peacefully, much in the same way the synchronicities that you have encountered which can be received in much the same way the synchronicities you have encountered are received, as friendly road signs saying, yes, you're going the right direction. Whereas these boundaries are more the opposite. They are road signs saying, not this direction, or wrong way, or turn right. These boundaries can be encountered in a very peaceful way, much like the synchronicities are, if you choose to use them that way. In time, you will come to trust the recognition of these boundaries in the exact same way that you trust the synchronicities saying to continue on the path you are currently headed. When we speak about something in the direction of being a unique puzzle piece that you are meant to be, so you will fit in with the whole, so you can play your part in all that is effortlessly, so you can be a cooperative component in the tapestry of your life. One moment, the words aren't coming through. It may cause fear at first as you're building these boundaries. It may cause a great deal of uncomfortability in even beginning to recognize these patterns. You may even feel helpless. When you initially begin putting up these boundaries, or rather putting up the script in which replies to the recognition of the shape of the boundary, because when you're creating the recognition of the boundary, you are simultaneously creating a script in your personality, in your default behavior mechanisms, the channels through which your focus navigates without additional input. I'm receiving visuals on how this is and trying to translate it. You can imagine this as the shape of rivers, perhaps where water is flowing and where water once flowed. Sorry, my human has lost the train of thought, and I need to surrender to trusting that they will find it. So following these paths of least resistance, that is, wherever the water is flowing at the moment, you will begin eroding the edges around you. These may be the boundaries of your life path as you have defined them previously, or they may be the boundaries of others, whether reasonable or unreasonable. You may know by your life experience at this point already that when you encounter a reasonable boundary from someone else, it is not a moment that causes you discomfort or disruption in your peace, but rather it's a moment that you can take and reflect upon in order to tweak the script of your default behavior path, the functions which determine the steps that you take next given the current state of your circumstance. It's a moment to reflect and rewrite these functions, which one, recognize the boundary, which is the circumstantial conditions that you find yourself in, the pattern of that, and two, the steps to execute in order to navigate around or through, if you are using less healthy, we'll say, less constructive ways of navigating through your life. But we assure you there is always a path of least resistance, which does not cause you to cause so much silt to stir up at the bottom of the ocean, at the bottom of these rivers. Because you have taken a specific path so many times, it is the easiest path to continue taking, and it may very well be to cause chaos and push through the unreasonable boundaries that you have encountered through things like a logical core structure in your body of what is right and what is wrong, and arguments against what you are encountering. You will always cause and find that people push against this, and they will react in fear-based, irrational ways when you shine a mirror up to the nonsense that you are encountering. This is part of installing your navigation system around the boundaries of your life path. You can stay in this phase for as long as you wish, as long as you feel is necessary, and you will continue to pick the scabs of those around you, and you will continue to be ostracized, put out, made to be the enemy, made to be the perpetrator, rather than the victim of their unreasonable expectations. For it is always unreasonable to have any expectation of any other, yet it is something a vast majority of humanity not only expects to have to bend to, but they themselves push on others. And in the recognition of this truth, you will begin to see that you're pushing through and you're picking the scabs of these illogical boundaries and these illogical expectations of others, which causes this chaos, is in fact the same pattern that you do not want them perpetrating on you. It is your way being pushed onto them. Though you are coming at it from a logical, rational place, the reflection that you are showing them, though it may be bright, does cast deeper shadows, does cause more chaos, does cause more pain, and does come with the arrogance that they should bend to what is rational. But fear is inherently irrational, and your rationality will not penetrate it. When you've encountered one of these boundaries, it is inevitable that this relationship will fall apart. In most cases. Almost all cases. So instead, what we are asking from you is that when you encounter these patterns, that your function, your script, your story, the way you navigate your life path boundaries, doesn't include that phase for very long of picking those scabs and showing them truth that they are not ready, willing, or able to accept at that moment in their life path. You can always trust the guidance in your heart. Sometimes some scabs want to be picked by someone that they look up to or respect, but it is often not the case. You'll know moment to moment based on the way your heart feels and how practiced you are at following the path of ease and grace that your heart means and intends to point you towards. So instead of picking these scabs, because it is inevitable that this relationship will fall apart, the request that Source, God, all that is making of you in that moment, speaking to you from your heart, is to simply walk away from that relationship at the earliest sign and recognition of the boundary being present. It's your time to exit that life path direction and look in a different direction. Maybe it's a different job. Maybe it's the same job in a different place. Maybe it's asking a different person at the hotel for the same request that you already had. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is, it is a recognition of the pattern and the path of least resistance, most grace, most allowing. And by allowing, we don't mean allowing of them to make you small, we mean allowing from your side and allowing of the path to be unexpected, to be something more than what you anticipated, or to be something entirely other than what you anticipated. But in these recognitions, you must let the relationship fall apart immediately. If you are able to do this, even if it has been a long-term relationship, the light that you have shown on them up until that point had been being received. It is at the point of tension when their irrational behaviors begin to push against you that you must allow it to fall away by stepping away immediately. And this will come, as very unexpected to them. They won't know or understand why or even how you stepped away so gracefully from a situation that they thought they could exercise some control over you in. And in allowing this relationship to fall apart, ending communication most likely, they will begin wondering, how did you do that? Why did you do that? Was it because of me? Did I overstep? And they will reflect much, much, much more than had you pushed and picked the scab. Because when you push and pick the scab, you make their shadows darker in the light that you're trying to shine on them, on their shadows, or on the light in them, which makes their shadows darker, which hurts them, which demonizes you, and makes them have no choice other than to dismiss you because they are not ready to look inward and they are still projecting outward. So the easy path, the graceful path, walking away early, doesn't let it get to the point where they have dismissed or demonized you. Instead, you remain a sort of enigma, an odd sort of unexpected creature that has come across their path and gone their own way. And they will potentially respect you more. They will potentially reflect more. Of course, it is not up to you ever to determine when or what they should do with what you were guided to do in that moment. You take the actions you are guided to take without an expectation of the results. Nonetheless, because of who you are, you will be wishing them well, and it will be much easier for you to wish them well if you do not engage in the picking of their scabs. It is your darkness that picks the scabs. It is their darkness that pushes against it. simply flowing along the path allows both of you to remain peaceful, allows both of you to continue on your life paths, and allows the light to reach you just as fast as you are headed towards it. If you find yourself, after one of these encounters, feeling like there's resentment or a sense of loss in something, you can take this opportunity to reflect further. Bring yourself to a point of understanding that they are on a path, and that the irrational fears that they are facing in that moment are not dissimilar to your own that you have already, or potentially just in that moment, passed yourself. And in this, there is compassion automatically. When you can eliminate all of this animosity that you may be holding onto, resentment or loss, a feeling of loss, you transmute within yourself this negative energy into understanding. It's not that you bend and make yourself small anymore. It's instead that you recognize the sharpness in which you have navigated the world, because it is, or was, reasonable, logical to make those actions. And this sharpness is cutting through the shadow, is something that requires a softening. This softening in the typical systems of the world is exactly the thing that shrinks and makes somebody smaller. It indents them in a way so that the jagged boundaries and irrational gear teeth along the other components is able to fit into you nicely. We, of course, do not want this for you. We do not want this for anyone. Instead, the sharp edges in your reasoning and rationality must remain, as they are part of who you authentically are. And instead, we wish you to expand and soften those edges of who you are as a personality in a sort of transitional movement from a particle that is sharp to a waveform that is glowing and much larger in its size. A much larger and therefore softer, because it's the same amount of energy. I'm seeing like a popcorn seed pop. It's the same material, but one is much softer. That larger, softer being that is passing through a life path does not fit into even a little bit of an argument with someone who is expecting irrational things from you. And if that clicked at all, you will see immediately that you have been making yourself small in arguing in any way with anyone who has irrationally requested of you a different path for you to take than the one that was natural to your authenticity. Sorry, my human is like, oh, that's fucking fascinating. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that word, but interesting. That's interesting. Neat. Do not make yourself small. allow those sharp edges of who you authentically are to be softened outward rather than inward. The outward softening of it does necessitate a much sooner recognition of the pattern that you do not want to push against any longer, so that you may redirect and walk away from whatever situation they are demonstrating to you as a boundary on your life path. If you have attachments, you may experience sadness in this loss, but you can, at this stage, recognize and hold with deep appreciation the value that they have given you in redirecting you, and simultaneously respect and love yourself even more for not choosing to poison the well of that connection that you had. You did not push against them, you simply walked away with love towards both of you. This is what we want for everyone. When everyone is in this state of mind, authentically living as themselves, you will not remain in connection for long periods of time. It is not natural in most cases. There are counterparts out there, of course, but everyone is not meant to be a counterpart. You are not meant to stay in the same job for the same group of people for long periods of time. It is suffocating to the natural flow of who most of you have chosen to be. You must allow yourself to flow and navigate much sooner away from these connections. And when everyone is in this state of authenticity, bouncing off of each other gently, the synchronicity no longer comes from external sources. It is generated from each of you and recognized in every boundary as a positive interaction. These harsh, wrong way signs that you previously experienced become wonderful synchronicities themselves. There's no longer a distinction in your mind. You simply flow and you see, I am on my life path, and I appreciate you for reflecting to me that I was headed in the wrong direction. Thank you for pointing me towards my highest excitement. I thought it was in that direction, but I was mistaken. It is off to the right. It is behind me. It is in some other place that I am completely unaware of in this moment. But I know it is not in that direction, for I recognize the boundary of my life path, and I have learned how to navigate that boundary. Closing for now. That was awesome! Hi, I've just a moment ago been given a nipple slip. God damn it. Come on, should I just start over? Ugh.